Hey, Web3 curious friends. Today's episode was shot live in Nashville, Tennessee at Bitcoin Nashville. I want to give a shout out to our two sponsors, BitLayer and Portal. BitLayer is the first Bitcoin security equivalent layer 2 based on the BitVM paradigm, while Portal is the bridgeless interoperability protocol on Bitcoin that utilizes BitScaler, which is the only trustless multi-party channel solution for scaling Bitcoin for DeFi and beyond. On today's show, we speak with Erin from Inscribing Atlantis, where she discusses hosting the event and all of the incredible speakers that attended. Last, we speak with Raph, who is the lead maintainer of the Ordinals protocol, and he discusses where the protocol is headed next. It's time to cue the intro.
Welcome to the Edge of NFT, the podcast that brings you the top 1% of Web3 today and what will stand the test of time. We explore the nuts and bolts of the business side and also the human element of how Web3 is changing the way we interact with the things we love. This podcast is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers who are pumped about this ecosystem and driving where it goes next.
A quick word from our sponsors who's ready to navigate the cutting edge of tomorrow's legal landscape. Because at Zuber Lawler, they're not just attorneys, they're visionaries. With expertise in emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, and the metaverse, they're paving the way for you to seize the future. For mergers and acquisitions to IP, their selective team delivers strategic solutions tailored to the ever-changing world of technology. Join us at Zuber Lawler, where the future meets the law at zuberlawler.com. Back to the episode.
What's up, everybody? Richard from Edge of NFT here, and I'm here with Erin with Inscribing Atlantis, who has been emceeing this incredible event and been speaking with all kinds of great artists today. And she was actually on a panel with one of my good friends, Stephen Miller, that I got to listen in on. So, Erin, how are you doing today?
Great. I'm glad that the event's finally come together. It's been a lot of months of planning and getting all the variables set, and it's just so fun to actually see all the moving parts coordinate. And I mean, we've just had incredible speakers. That's really been the main thing. I feel like we've got great moderators who are delving really deeply and bringing out perspectives from speakers that I think most people haven't heard before.
Right.
And it's just been a really fun, insightful day.
It has. A lot of really, like you said, great speakers speaking on all kinds of different topics. The one that I was specifically listening in on was around how art is being brought to Bitcoin and the future of what that looks like. So can you kind of just tell a bit more about, what were you speaking about on your panel and what did you take away from that?
So I think that, the big appeal of Bitcoin is its longevity, right? It's like the daddy chain. Like everything comes back to Bitcoin. That's what Bitcoiners love to think. And I think that, with Ordinals getting the ability to inscribe content onto Bitcoin, NFTs on Bitcoin, however you want to say it, it just adds another dimension of immutability and permanence that I think is really appealing to creators. And so the conversation we were having in the panel that you were referencing was kind of all about thinking about Bitcoin as this huge mega structure that exists in digital space, right? We think that the internet is written in ink. It's really not, right? Try to go back to your MySpace page from 10, 15 years ago. You can't find it. You need to use the Wayback Machine and you can't have every page. There's a lot of content that we have now that we think will be around, whether it's IPFS link or whatever that we put our NFTs or our content into, that is really not, I think, going to stand the test of time over long periods, decades, centuries of time. But I personally believe Bitcoin will, right? Because, everything that you inscribe on Bitcoin is on Bitcoin. You have to get that content in order to run Bitcoin in the first place. And because Bitcoin has this strong economic thesis behind it, everyone who's using Bitcoin for cypherpunk, economic, whatever reasons also has to download all of the things that we inscribe. And so it creates this longevity of content that I think will become increasingly rare as the internet goes on for the next, couple decades, 50 years, 100 years.
I agree. And I think a lot of people that are here for Bitcoin Nashville, here for this particular event, would also agree with that stance and the permanence that is within the blockchain and especially Bitcoin and all of the incredible things that are coming along with the adoption of Bitcoin in the last year here in the States, with Bitcoin ETF going live, with the concept of the idea of a potential Bitcoin reserve currency and all these other amazing things. But when you've been listening to a lot of the different conversations that have been happening just here today, what have been some of the major takeaways that you've been getting?
So I think it's interesting to see an art scene emerging here. I was not in the NFT world before Ordinals and Inscriptions. I was in the Bitcoin world. And I don't know how different this is from, the Ethereum NFT community or the Solana NFT community. I don't even know how different those two are from each other, right?
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing emerge with Ordinals and Inscriptions is like its own cultural movement. Inscriptions are a really particular artistic medium. And what I mean by that is you can't just drag and drop a 2 megabyte JPEG onto Bitcoin and do that 10,000 times over and call it an inscription collection or an NFT collection. I mean, you can, but it will cost you probably millions of dollars, right? Yeah. So, the type of art that fits the inscribing medium is its own kind of technical and artistic creative challenge. And I think it's really only in the last maybe 6 to 8 months that people have really started to be able to wrap their heads around that, because it takes a technical knowledge and a creative vision. And so, the first conference we did, Inscribing Amsterdam back in October, I feel like I think we literally timed the bottom of the market. Like at that time, it was like just the local bottom. And it's really interesting to see how the conversations have evolved since then, because at that conference, it was all Bitcoin nerds. So the conversations were extremely in group, extremely technical. It was all just this small niche of people that were into this, either because they, maybe they were doing Stacks NFTs, for example. So they were already kind of in the Bitcoin world, or maybe they're Bitcoiners that always wanted to do NFTs, but you know what I mean? It was kind of the specific niche of people that came together. And I feel like now what we're seeing in this conference is we have, NFT artists or artists that have never even made an NFT in their lives that are coming and giving their perspective on Bitcoin from this more like, permanence, like internet permanence thing that I was just talking about. Like I feel like that's the thing that really is inspiring creators to think about, okay, if I'm a digital artist, how can I make my digital art outlive me? Like, what does that even look like? Like if the internet was invented after my birth, so I can't even conceive of what life was like, on the internet before me. Like what is it going to look like after I'm gone? And so I don't know. It's cool to see this like weird, esoteric, philosophical kind of art scene emerge on Bitcoin. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. Certainly not on Bitcoin.
No, not emerging as prominent as it has been over the last year. And one of the things that I really took away from another conversation, I didn't realize, your typical iPhone, when you take a picture, it's multiple megabytes, right? But you basically have 400 kilobytes to work with inscriptions. And if you get to a point where you're trying to do more than that, people spend tens of thousands, millions of dollars if you were to do it the way that, these larger files and doing it over and over again to test. So you have this convergence, like you said, of the highly technical with the art, but then also this existential idea around permanence, right? And like, how does that evolve into the internet and like blending all that together? So like, I think that was you said it beautifully, and I think it is like a beautiful thing to see all of those things converge, especially at an event like this. So looking ahead to the rest of this week, obviously we're here in Nashville, or at Bitcoin Nashville, and there's much more to come. What are your expectations for the rest of this week?
So, I mean, I think, there's lots more Ordinals stuff going on, which is really exciting. It's so cool to have like an Ordinals event to go to every day. But obviously the thing that I'm most excited about is like just the craziness of the Bitcoin conference and the speakers that they've gotten for this year. Like, it's just, I thought for a while that, I was like, okay, I'm waiting for Bitcoin to kind of become this issue that comes up politically, right? Like everyone who's into Bitcoin understands the economic and political thesis or impact that Bitcoin could have, or maybe already is having, depending on your perspective. And I think I've waited for a long time for like the other shoe to drop, almost, of like for the political world or the econ world or the whatever world to realize that. And I feel like we're finally there. And it's just, I'm really curious to see, these figures that, I mean, essentially they're pandering to Bitcoiners, right? That's what they have to do. They see that there's like power and money and whatever in this ecosystem, and they want to be a part of it. And I think it's interesting. It's exciting. It feels fulfilling to see a thesis that you've had in your head play out. But at the same time, and I think it's been said a couple times on stage today, we don't need those people. We've never needed those people. And so, there's no reason to pander back to them, right? Like, and I think I'm really curious to see, at the Bitcoin conference later this week, just how that relationship goes between, the people that are there for Bitcoin and the people that are there because they want a piece of what Bitcoin has to offer. Like, I think that's an interesting tension that's only going to become more prevalent as years go on.
I agree. I think it's a dynamic that we haven't really seen in previous Bitcoin national events, in international events, and it happens to be an election year, so there's a lot of that going on. But like you said, like that element, take that aside. Like we never needed that for crypto to be moving forward and for Bitcoin to keep progressing the way it has. So I'm excited for that as well. But for Erin, for people who are listening to this and they're like, "Yo, she's awesome. I want to learn more." Where can people learn more about you and follow what you have going on?
Yeah, if I've got a couple different things going. I've always got some pots in the fire. If you like listening to me talk, I ramble all the time on Hell Money Podcast, which is my podcast with Casey Rodomore, the creator of Ordinals. If you're interested in this, Bitcoin permanence, like thinking about Bitcoin from this like deep time, outliving us perspective, I have a project called Ephemera, which is really delving into a lot of those topics. You can find that at ephemera.gallery. If you're interested in my conferences and the events that I host, we've got the Inscribing series. The next one is Inscribing Singapore in September. We'll also be doing Art Basel again in December in Miami. So depending on what you're interested in, I've got something for you.
I think our audience is going to be happy with all of those options, especially the IRL events. So Erin, thank you for sharing all that, and it's great speaking.
Thank you so much.
And now for a quick word from our sponsor before we dive into the next segment. Are you ready to take your sports predictions to the next level? Look no further than maincard.io, the fantasy management platform that's taking the blockchain world by storm. With MainCard, every card is a ticket to excitement. You can predict sport outcomes, trade cards in the marketplace, and challenge opponents in thrilling weekly duels. And don't wait. Head to maincard.io now and start earning rewards with your NFTs, because it pays to be early. And now back to today's episode.
Hey everybody, Richard from the Edge of NFT here, and I have an amazing guest next to me, Raph, who is the lead maintainer of the Ordinals protocol. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, glad you could be here. Obviously, with being the lead, I want the origin story. Like, how did this even happen, right?
Yeah. So it started about like 2 years ago. I was still a student in university back in Germany. I grew up in Berlin. I studied in Munich. And yeah, I found this weird project on the internet, on GitHub. GitHub is where you publish code and where most of the open source code lives. And I saw this guy, Casey Rodomore, like working on this weird project and was like, oh, I want to do stuff on Bitcoin. I'm interested in Bitcoin. I have some extra time next to my studies. So I wrote him, was like, oh, I think it's cool what you're doing. Can I like contribute? He was like, yeah, just like open a PR. A PR is a pull request. So it's like when you want to make a change to the code, you open a PR. And yeah, I think I opened my first PR back in August 2022.
Wow.
And yeah, from there, like we really got along. We hopped on Discord calls a lot, like sharing our screen, doing pair programming. It's like pair programming is when you share your screen and like work on like a problem together. You discuss like the technical trade-offs, figure out what's good, and then you implement it together.
Yeah.
Like, and then you usually have like the split, a navigator and a coder. The coder is the one who actually writes, and the navigator is maybe looking at the docs, helping out. Like, we don't always code like that, but it was very good in the beginning for me because I was very inexperienced in the programming language we used. It was Rust. So I really like learned very quickly through that. So I had like basically a mentor who would like teach me everything. I like to say that I was his apprentice.
Yeah. Because
it's a very like hand-on kind of thing, learning to program. You need to like have someone who's experienced, like tell you how to structure things, how to think logically about stuff. And then we launched Ordinals. We weren't sure if it was going to be successful, but we just launched it, and it like went rocket ship up from that point. And then at some point, Casey wanted to step back a little bit to like focus on other things, and he made me the lead maintainer of the protocol, which means I kind of have like the high-level view of everything that's going on. I have to kind of decide what becomes part of the protocol, new features, maintaining it. And yeah, that's my like main job at the moment. But I also work as the CDO of Inscribing Atlantis. This is the conference we're here at today. Inscribing Nashville is the conference we're doing. But we have a whole kind of series of conferences. So we chose like Inscribing and then blank. So we did Inscribing Amsterdam. We're probably going to do also Inscribing Singapore. We're doing Inscribing Nashville right now. So yeah, that's me on a high level.
That's awesome. A lot of things I want to go and break down. The first is, you saw an opportunity, you saw something that looked cool, and you reached out and said, hey, I want to help do this.
Yeah.
And by just taking that action, basically the trajectory of your life changed very quickly. And it is now catapulted into the amazing thing that most people who are listening to this know, which are Ordinals.
Yeah.
So not only that, you got a mentor through Casey, who's also doing all this awesome stuff, helping you with Rust. Rust is a very difficult coding language. Yeah. So you got multiple things out of literally just saying, hey, this is cool. how can I get involved? So like, I just want to take this moment to really just reflect on people who listen to our show all the time, and you listen to some of the Ordinal stories. Sometimes you just need to take action. Sometimes you hear about something really cool. Sometimes you like hear about a project or a community and you're like, man, that sounds really awesome. Instead of just having that thought, do something, do that next step.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
it could change everything, right?
Yeah, like my initial motivation was like to work with someone that is experienced in Rust and do something on Bitcoin. Like I liked the project, but my main motivation was like selfish. I wanted to learn something, and there was this person who was giving away knowledge for free, and that was like my initial motivation to do stuff. And yeah, you just have to take the leap sometimes. Like I remember the first commit I did was a very like small change in the repo, but it felt so good. Like having when you do a PR, like a pull request, like someone reviews it. In this case, it's Casey, and then they click approve, and you get this green check mark, and then you can press squash merge, and then it becomes part of the code base. So that's a very satisfying feeling. Generally, like open source is a lot of stress sometimes because like everyone is watching what you do. Like every single thing you do is like being watched and scrutinized. But it's also very rewarding, like getting that feedback from like the world, basically. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So you get the feedback, and now again, catapult here to being the CTO of Inscribing Atlantis, which is doing all these different places. Right now, we're in Nashville. Obviously, this event has been amazing. Had the amazing opportunity to talk to Erin earlier, and now getting to speak with you. Like, what were your big takeaways from today's event?
From today's event, like just the sheer amount of like, how big and real the community is. Like when you spend a lot of time on the internet, you interact with like PFPs and like through Telegram chats or like on Instagram, on Twitter. And like, but then you see these people in real life and you really like feel the energy. So then when you go back onto the timeline, these people. So now like there's like this real organic connection. So like for me, the most fun part is meeting the people in real life and seeing that that is a real thing, like it's not just bots that I'm interacting with, it's actually real people. And then of course, like all the discussions here, like you can have these very spontaneous discussions, new ideas come up, like, oh, how could we like improve the protocol, which is always kind of easier to talk to in person because it's like you're already engaged, you get all the, facial features and facial reaction that like much more information flows between people when you're in person than online. So that's what I enjoyed most. And of course, I don't know if you'll show this in the video, but like we have this epic, huge screen, like with amazing animations. Like a bunch of people like made these animations. So it's like you're standing in front of it, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah.
We're at an amazing place that the event's being held. Where apparently they put on movies here.
They filmed The Mandalorian here, I think.
Oh wow, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
When we share these screens, you'll see why. But like, this a really cool event set up, and I agree with you. Like being able to meet all these people IRL in real life. After spending hours worth of time
on Twitter Spaces, YouTube, whatever,
gonna finally come put a face to a name and further those relationships, but also like the knowledge that you get from hearing all these amazing speakers. One of the things that I think is so cool, like you said, you've been building this for almost 2 years now. August of 2022 at the time of this recording, it's July of 2024, and you have all of these Ordinal projects that have emerged. How have you seen the progression of more and more people inscribing on top of this protocol?
Yeah, it's honestly astonishing, because when you work on the low-level protocol, you're pushing bits and bytes everywhere, very focused on like these nitty-gritty details. And then what is nice, you see this emergent phenomenon of people coming together and using your software, and like all of this complexity that you never imagined would happening on like this foundation of the protocol. So just like seeing a community grow from absolute zero, like it was literally me and Casey and one other person who were just coding, like nobody was interested in it, seeing it from going from absolute zero to this like multi-billion market that it's now and the whole community around it. That's pretty cool. Like I'm not gonna lie, like that's one of the craziest things I've experienced.
It's sick, man. It's a huge accomplishment. And just for all those that you can share alpha with, what's next for Inscriptions?
So I mean, the thing I maintain is called ORD. It's like the reference implementation. It's not only the reference implementation for Ordinals and Inscriptions, it also has runes support, which is like this fungible token protocol. But I think our focus is more on Ordinals and Inscriptions because I think they're more interesting and more fitting to like L1 Bitcoin. I think runes is very good for like layer 2 and stuff. So, but we're working on both ends. So I think new features that we're adding are stuff that we call recursive endpoints. This basically allows inscriptions to like talk to each other and like build up complex like 3D graphical things by referencing other stuff and referencing stuff that is on-chain. So I think the most innovation for the application space or for users and for artists is through these recursive endpoints, because the Ordinals and Inscriptions protocol is pretty stable right now. So in the beginning, we had a lot to do. Like when we launched, it was an unfinished protocol, and like we had to like scramble to like get like the basic features out. And now, like after 18 months, 2 years, we're at a stage where the protocol is pretty much 95% done. There's a lot of low-level work, making the database more efficient, but that's not very relevant for users. What's relevant is like these recursive endpoints. And we'll keep kind of building those out. And then like I am slowly also like going into the application space. So I'm doing the protocol work. I've done some inscribing, and now I'm building also like a whole kind of application around it together with Inscribing Atlantis and Erin. We have this project called Ephemera, Ephemera Kits. If you go to ephemera.gallery, and it's like a whole cool kind of archaeological connecting Bitcoin time with like planet time. And so it's very cool to kind of do a foray into the application space and actually building something that people can click around and use. So that's the alpha, I guess, for now.
And it's a lot of alpha. So someone's listening to this who's motivated from what we talked about earlier about hearing something and doing something. Right now, you can be that Casey for someone else that's listening right now. How can they tap in and become involved with what you have going on and learn more about your journey and what's to come?
That's a great question. So I'm a developer, so I'm always looking for people who want to code in Rust, help me with the code base. I'm always looking for help. We do these coding streams, so where me and Casey, sometimes only me, where we sit down and do work on the code base. So it's great to kind of, if you're trying to get to know Rust, trying to get to know the protocol, we kind of sit down and like walk through the code base, explain how everything works, and code up some new features. And we've recorded, I think now must be 20, 30 videos. If you go to the Open Ordinals Institute YouTube, you can see all of those recordings. So if you want to kind of get into the developing part of it, you can check out those videos. Like they're fun. Like we try to make them interactive. And we also do the streams, of course. So I think every 2 weeks we do a stream. So if you kind of follow me on Twitter or Casey, we'll announce it, and then people come into the Discord and we code together and do stuff together. So that's good for developers if they want to get into it.
Perfect.
And then artists, just there's a bunch of resources to check out. But
So for those who are listening, what is your Twitter?
Raph Jeff. So RAPHJAPH. That's my Twitter. Check it out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sometimes.
Well, make sure you go follow him, get involved in this amazing community. And Raph, appreciate your time today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed on Edge of NFT reflect solely those views and opinions of the show hosts and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information available on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of those links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.